so we can make sure that we stay on schedule.
Okay.
Cool. So for everybody that's here, I'm going to introduce Lisa. Lisa is actually our last guest's wife. So she's in Boston. She's a psychologist. And, the reason I wanted to have her on is because last year I stayed at her and Tony's apartment in Boston when I came up to do a presentation. And I actually got to spend an hour or so with her before Tony got home, and was talking to her about her work. And she does really good work, and she's a super bright lady. So I feel like we can all benefit from some of the work that she does, because there's a psychological component to everything that we do in our field. So I feel like her insight's really going to help us do our jobs better. So Lisa, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before, Steph, I know you have a question, Kristen, I know you have a question, but before we get rolling with yours, I'm going to ask one for Matt, who can't be here tonight. Okay. So we'll start that, and then hopefully the conversation will flow through there, and then you guys will obviously get your chance to ask your questions too. So, but we're going to start with Matt's, and his is about a specific client. So yes, what are some strategies to help break through with clients when we have the same conversation seemingly every week with no progress? It starts with a complaint about food / consistency / body image. And he asks questions about food logs, habit work, etc. The typical precision nutrition protocols. But nothing's changed. She typically responds frustrated and defensive about how she doesn't eat poorly or she doesn't eat too much. And she turns 50 this year. What are some strategies to make any progress with her? He feels like he's run into a brick wall every time.
Yeah, so I'm sure this is hopefully a common client or something that other people are nodding their heads, because this is somebody who is presenting like they want to change and is presenting like they're doing the work and being compliant. I think that's what he's getting at, is that she says she's following instructions and eating how she's supposed to eat and nothing is changing. And I'm sure he's probably asked her already, like, what do you think is getting in the way, or what do you think the barriers are? So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is there's some way in which she's either acting out or non-compliant and isn't talking about it. And that has to do with not being all the way on board or not seeing the behavior as a problem. So what I mean by that is, maybe she's not counting any of the snacking she's doing during the day, or maybe she's engaging in some kind of behavior that's like sneak eating, or eating at night, or in some way not recording what she's eating. But whatever she's doing, she's not able to be honest about it, even though she's really frustrated. And I think as the person who's being reported to, it's hard not to feel like the person's not lying to you or being manipulative. And then there's another part of you as the provider, as the practitioner, who like wants to fix it, who wants to make it go away, or wants to solve the problem for the client. So I think that's what leads us kind of to burnout or frustration, is taking on the client's work and feeling like, why aren't we getting to the goal that we want them to get to? So the first thing that I would say is be careful not to start feeling your client's feelings. Like, the client is feeling frustrated, the client is feeling stuck. You don't have to feel that way as well, because ultimately it's up to her to change her behavior. You can't force her to. There's nothing you could say to her or do to her to like make her be more compliant or cut 100 more calories out of her day or whatever it is that's getting her stuck. I think sometimes when we join with the clients and like get in their frustration and feel that stuck feeling, it doesn't help them. And does that make sense to people who are listening?
100%. Yeah, I think even not only do I think we take on their emotions sometimes, but like us feeling that frustration almost turns it into a cycle of frustration on frustration, and then no one really gets a problem solved, and we kind of just keep ending up in those same cycles, and the dynamic doesn't change at all.
Yeah. So sometimes being able to like remain relaxed or to not get caught up in the frustration can help you to keep your perspective, or can kind of help you to, I worked with a nutritionist one time who's a precision nutrition guy, and he stayed really calm, and he was just like, what do you think it is that might be getting in the way? Let's just like spitball some things. And he kind of sat back. So I was twisted up. This was years ago. I was twisted up about it, but he wasn't. And that helps. Because what it does is kind of open the door a little bit for the client to kind of talk about their behavior more honestly, or say, well, I'm eating how I'm supposed to be, but maybe it could be this. So sometimes just making a little bit of space and not coming up with the answer for them, but just saying, one of the things I like to say is, I wonder. So like, I wonder what could be getting in the way. It's a much more passive way of asking, well, what are what are you not doing, or what's missing? But when you wonder with them, it's a little more collaborative than, trying to grill them or solve the problem for them.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you think it's almost like you kind of stay in like the interrogative context with them, but at the same way, make it so they can be objective about their situation rather than feeling subjectively caught up in what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that's happening for clients like this is they're feeling guilty, or they're feeling shame, or they're feeling failure. And the more that we can keep judgment or guilt out of the equation, the more room they're going to have to actually think about the problem objectively, or just say the truth, whatever's out there. So if these are clients who have had trouble with their weight for years, have trouble with their relationship with food, it's not straightforward for them. There's an emotional component to it, or it's a loaded issue, I guess to say. It's not straightforward math of calories in, calories out. There's other things that are going on. So the more you can keep judgment out of it, and the more you can keep emotions out of it, and just try to help them talk about it openly, I think the further you're going to get with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's basically just keeping up with open-ended questions and letting them talk? And
I think it is. And also, one of the expressions we use in therapy is like reflection of feeling, which is just like, if they're aggravated, you're like, oh, that sounds so frustrating. I wonder what could be going on. Or, man, I know by this point you'd be expecting to see some progress, or in some way that you're joining with them, like, that sounds rough. What could be going on? So you're with them in the process, you care, but you're not getting all twisted up in a knot about it, or you're not taking it on as a failure of you as the trainer or the person that's trying to help them.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions based on that? Anything that popped up for anybody? No. Steph, why don't you jump in and ask your question?
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
So I kind of had a little bit of a two-part question. Right now I'm doing travel physical therapy. I'm finishing up, but the last few places I've been, the demographics and kind of populations I've been working with have been kind of not very athletic and not very motivated, which is a little frustrating for me. That's kind of where I want to be, but at least for the time that I have left here, I think the biggest thing I struggle with is kind of getting to them. I get a lot of people, for example, some lady today was telling me that the hardware in her spine is twisted, and that's what's causing her legs to go numb. And, kind of like crazy things that people have in mind of what's wrong, and they identify with it. So it's hard for me to kind of reach them and either one, convince them that what I'm about to do with them movement wise can be helpful, kind of get them to buy in. And then the other part of it is, how can I find myself getting frustrated a lot, but I don't want that to affect how I treat them. So I was wondering if there's a way that when you're frustrated, or you've worked with people who are frustrated with patients or clients, how can you yourself kind of change your frame of mind? Because I got 7 weeks left, so I gotta I gotta do something as far as that goes for me too.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's draining for you to be with the population.
That would be a really good word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's taking your energy away from you, as opposed to like energizing you and making you feel fulfilled.
Right, which sucks because up until now, I would never question being a physical therapist. I just, since I'm ready to be done with this part of it and in a different setting, I'm like sort of like in limbo, like stuck.
Yeah. But you're stuck for 7 weeks. So that's the good news. Like after this, you're moving on to something else. So the question is like, how to get you through the 7 weeks and keep you as like resilient and as happy as possible.
Right.
Can you explain to me, so how do the clients come to you, or why are they working with you?
So for the most part, I'm in a hospital-based outpatient therapy clinic. So we treat a lot of like Medicaid, Medicare patients. They've got a lot of other comorbidities, sometimes psych-soc. Half the time I don't blame them for maybe PT not being their priority. But, for the ones that diligently come, and similar to what Matt said, like there's just really no change week to week, even though we, I get all enthusiastic. I'm like, all right, let's try these 1 or 2 things. And they're like, okay. Some of them will flat out just kind of be honest and say, well, okay, I'll try. And, they're not going to. And other people say they're trying and they probably aren't, those kinds of things. But I think the biggest thing is the people that come in with like chronic pain or a lot of back and neck pain, and they've already identified like, this is like, I have chronic pain, I have fibromyalgia, like this is the way it's going to be. They like almost tell me that in the eval, and I don't know how to like tell them, well, it doesn't have to be that way. And like brushing me off.
So here's your like values, your goals, your reason for being in this field. And like, here's the clients. That's as low as I can go on the screen, all the way down here. Here's where they're at. Here's where their priorities are for their physical health or their rehabilitation. And when you describe people who are on disability, these are people who part of their identity may be being sick.
Right.
Or there may be just a resolve, like it's not going to get any better for me, when actually physical therapy is all about improving quality of life and function. Right. So they're in a totally different place in their head than where you're at. So this is the difficulty. Like this is where you're operating and this is where they're operating. So I think one way to think about it for 7 weeks, this is just one pitch I would make to you, is to try to practice or try to see what it's like to be in a mode of being 100% client-centered, where you go into work and you think, I know what my values are. I know I'm in this industry, but it's not going to be about me for the next 8 hours. And you kind of put that, you don't have to throw it away, but you put it to the side. And when you go into work, you're meeting the client where they're at, which means if they say, this is the way it's going to be forever, say like, well, what made you get up out of bed and come here today?
Yeah.
I don't know. My wife was on my ass and she said, go, or they'll give you something. And I would go from there. Whatever the reason is that they came in, I would try to join with that.
Okay.
If you're assigning them homework or exercises and they're not going to do it, it's not going to benefit them, and it's going to piss you off and frustrate you and remove your energy from you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you ever heard the words motivational interviewing. It's a technique. And basically it's about meeting the client where they're at. So it's like, finding a very kind of neutral way to say something like, what do you think are the chances, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1's like, hell no, I'll never do any, and 10's like, I'm dying for you to give me homework.
Right.
The chances are, you'll do like 10 of these 3 times a week. And most people will be able to be like 3, 5, and okay, well, you think once a week, could we get that? Or like, maybe you could get up off the couch and like walk to the kitchen at every commercial, or but as opposed to, because if you're going to continue operating from where your values are and how you want your clients to act, how compliant you want them to be, you're going to be frustrated for 7 weeks straight, because they don't really care what your values are.
It's true.
And they're non-compliant. You want to think about them as they're non-compliant patients, but for some reason they're coming in.
Right. Yeah, they keep coming back. So.
So at least you've got them in the session, right? They're going to participate in a session. So one way for you to be thinking about treatment planning is like, I have them for 45 minutes, however often you get them, once or twice or 3 times a week. How can I maximize that time? So one thing you're doing is you're thinking about how can I meet them where they're at? And then this other part is like, how do I get my needs met? So, and your needs are like, I want to make a difference. I want to improve function. I want to improve the quality of their life.
Right.
So it may be that you're tempering your expectations from like, I'm going to rock their world and make them like feel fabulous. They'll be doing cartwheels around their house. To like, here's what they're available for. Here's what they're willing to do. So here's what I might be able to work with them on.
No, thank you. That's definitely, I think I've been, especially with this course too, I've been ready to like go and
yes,
just not who I'm with right now. So
yeah. So, you know, you want to think about it like this is not the population you're going to spend your life working with. So how can you make the time beneficial for you? Like what can you learn from being with people who are like this? And what you're being with the most unmotivated people who are so used to being sick and feeling bad that they don't even know that they feel bad.
Right.
They don't even know. And you know. So how can you be able to tolerate that and still try to meet them where they're at and help them, but also help yourself to not get all the life sucked out of you while you're there?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Anybody have anything on top of that goes along with that?
I kind of have. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can, Wes.
All right, cool. I kind of have similar question, but in the opposite direction. Does that make sense? So essentially, I have this client we've trained for a while. She's also a good buddy, and she does way too much. Like she'll train with me, then she'll go to Pilates, then she'll do spinning, and I've tried to, without being like, no, that's wrong, because that shit doesn't work. Like educate her on like training and what adaptation is and blah, blah, blah. And now both her daughters are like out of the house and she's like 40 something, like very well off. And to fill up her time, it's almost gotten worse now that the kids are gone. She's just doing so much shit. And again, she's like gotten better in terms of like what I've told her, like in terms of this is how a program works and blah, blah, blah. But I don't want to be like, no, that's wrong. Or, you know, how do I go about telling her to pump the brakes, if that makes sense?
Well, you said it's way too much.
Yeah. Like she's doing like, I mean, like she'll train with me, but I'll like pump the brakes indirectly with like what we do. But I'm saying like ever since her kids are gone, it's like I said, she'll train with me, then she'll do this, then she'll do that. And it's like, it's overtraining.
And so the overtraining part, can you tell me about how you know it's overtraining or what it is that you observe or hear her say?
Oh, just like
she's doing too much.
She's always sore, no sleep, like lack of sleep, always sore. Her, so what is it, parasympathetic, whatever it is, she's always like jacked up, like her resting heart rate, no gains, like, you know, all the, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but from what I see, it's overtraining. Everything she does, she's at a 10. So like whether it's me or Pilates or cycling, she's like trying to gas herself out, like get to that point. And like I said, the zero sleep and she's always sick and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So her physical health is not fabulous.
No, despite like all the stuff.
Yeah. And when you talk to her about these things, does she acknowledge that that is the case?
She'll be like, I'll be like, hey, like, how is like, what was your day like? And she'll be like, you know, oh, well, I did Pilates and then I have you. And then after that, and she'll be like, I know I shouldn't do all that, but like, I'm going to take it easy, but she doesn't. Does that make sense? So like, she'll acknowledge like that I've kind of told her like, hey, maybe don't lift weights and then do this and then this and then this and have a snack, like that type deal. So she'll like acknowledge like, I know you don't want me to, but I'm not going to go that hard or like, you know, whatever.
So this is what I would describe as continued use despite adverse consequences, which is the definition of addiction. So she's doing something that's actually not, can you still hear me?
Yeah, now I can. For some reason, my stuff keeps freezing, but now, I got you.
Okay. So I said, this reminds me of the expression continued use despite adverse consequences, which is what kind of the general idea of addiction is, that you engage in a behavior that initially helps you get away from some feeling or helps you to cure some negative feeling that you have. And then you keep using it and using it and using it. And then there's all these negative side effects and consequences, but you keep doing it anyway. So even though the point of fitness and exercise and all these things she's doing is to feel better and get stronger and be leaner and be healthier, actually all of those consequences are moving in the opposite direction. All those outcomes are going in the opposite direction.
Totally.
You're describing. So she's not getting the results. That's the point of doing all this. So she must be getting something else out of completely gassing herself.
God damn it.
Uh-oh. Did I lose you again?
There it is. All right, it's back. It's back.
Okay. So there must be some other benefit she's getting out of this, is what I think. And that's not your job to know because, you know, you're not her therapist. But I do think you're doing the right thing by saying to her, you know, I notice you're not sleeping. I notice your calories aren't quite enough. And I notice you're overtraining and you're tired and you're not making your gains. And I'm just worried about you. I care about you. I want you to get stronger and better. And I see you, you know, kind of getting weaker, not recovering, and being really tired.
That sounds good to me.
And then the use of silence, like one of these. You know, it's a pregnant pause. It's waiting for, like, now it's your turn to respond to that. So you want to, however you do that verbally or non-verbally, whether it's like leaving your eyebrows up or like giving an inquisitive look, or saying like some kind of I wonder statement, like I wonder what's going on, that you're, now we're at the point of diminishing returns. And she might not answer you about it, but I think one of the things you're getting at is like the ethics of, like, my job is to help her, and she's actually doing harm to herself.
Right. And I'm like tempted to almost just be like, hey, like, I love you and I care about you. So maybe we don't train together or some shit like that. Like, I'm literally considering that. And I've done it before. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one approach to take. Like, at this point, I care about you, and I feel like us weight training together or training together is just going to cause you more harm than it is good. And maybe just see what she says. I don't know how long you've been working with her, but the relationship has leverage. Like, your opinion matters. Your time with her matters. Obviously, you care about her, so she cares about you too. So does she have an awareness that you're this concerned about her?
She knows that I get like frustrated because I won't like, you know, yell or like get totally pissy or whatever, but like I'll kind of consistently, like a record, be like, you know, like I was saying, try to educate her on like what's happening and why she feels the way she does and shit like that. But I guess generally just being like, hey, like, I'm worried about you. I haven't, I guess, done that. I mean, I'm pretty good with people or whatever, but I guess to just straight up express it and kind of lay out the facts with that pregnant pause, I have not yet attempted, if that makes sense.
So that could be like a new way to go and just kind of see what you get.
I like it. Thank you.
Okay.
Also, you deadlifted next to me once. You probably don't remember.
I did? Where?
Yeah, at Rebel out in Chicago. Tony gave a presentation.
Yeah.
You were there. It was like a Monday. And I was like, damn, she can pull weight. And then Mike was like, yeah, that's Tony Giannacor's wife. I was like, oh, shit.
Did you have hair at that time?
No. I had like a shaved head.
So. I got it now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So that actually makes me think of a question, kind of jump on the back of that. I'm not going to say piggyback because we say piggyback every fucking 5 seconds, but I just said piggyback. So what if, like, I've been to the point, you know, probably 10 times in my career where I knew someone needed professional help.
Yeah.
Needed someone like you. Obviously, stuff that's beyond my skill set, you know, the normal motivational interviewing, helping people solve their problems based on our scope.
Yeah.
But obviously there was an underlying cause that was beyond me and not my job to fix. Yeah. What's a way to bridge that gap and have that conversation?
Yeah.
Let's get it started.
That's such a good question. And I will preface this by saying it depends, which is such a shitty answer in a lot of ways, but there are so many factors that influence how you can start to have that conversation. The first time anybody asked me this question, I was doing a workshop in Australia in this little town out in the middle of nowhere where like going to therapy was kind of taboo and like only crazy people do it. So the room had kind of a negative reaction when I just started talking about like, bring up going to talk to a therapist, because that was very unusual. Whereas in Boston, it's like pretty normal. It's pretty standard that somebody would suggest that. So I think given like where you're working, what the culture is like, where you're working, who your client is, I think that's all going to have an interplay, have an effect on how you might present that. But I think if you as the practitioner are having a gut feeling like, you know what, there's like a little something extra happening in the room. It's not just me and the client and their nutrition, or me and the client and their strength training. You have to go with your gut. That is an excellent source of information. And you will know the client. So you'll know whether or not they have the ability to like verbalize their feelings, if they're open to feedback, if they are psychologically minded or not. So it might be, some people might be like very open to that. It's like suggesting they go talk to a nutritionist or go see a manual therapist. It's just like one more tool in a toolbox. Whereas other clients might come from backgrounds where like the last thing you ever do is talk about your feelings to someone else. And that, I think that gets a little bit trickier.
Right.
I think that's sort of dancing around the outside of your question. Just because if I say one sentence, like here's how to do it, that's not going to fit most clients. It has to really be, I think, kind of tailored. But I think one way you can go is, you know, you're always thinking like the client's spending their time and their money and their energy working with me. And my job is to help them meet their goals. And so if we're getting stuck, part of my role is to really acknowledge that and say, here's something that's sort of outside the scope of our work together, but I notice it's getting in the way. And I wonder if somebody else might be able to help with that. Can you think of like, do you have like a case in mind or an example?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know what, that's on me for not probably giving you enough context.
No, that's okay.
So, we have, Chris, I mean, you can help me out with this. So if you want to jump in at any time, we have several people at our gym that, and this might just be me being an asshole, but it seems like their pain is like kind of psychosomatic. And like, it's like, cause we've put them in different positions where like, they'll say this fucking hurts, but then we do something that we know is far more stressful and it doesn't hurt. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, like, we talk about people, I think sometimes don't know what we'll ask them, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt in your entire life, 1 being, you know, no discomfort at all. What's this feel like to you? And people will say things like, oh, that's an 8, but they're saying it to you talking as calmly as we are now. And it's like, all right. So, and then what he's talking about with like, I'll give you an example of this whole, like putting them in a position that they don't think. So for instance, one lady that he actually was working with today, she'll tell you that she can't push anything because she has neck issues. Mm-hmm. She has no, like, she has no doctor telling her that she can't do these things. She's led herself to believe these things. So the one day I had her doing some stuff and Todd kind of looked at me like, what in the world? Like, not like saying like, what you're doing is stupid, but like, what are you doing? And I came over and quietly was like, dude, right now, like I'm hiding pushing in her program, just seeing how she does. And so she's going through it and like, how's everything feel? Oh, everything feels great. And we were doing like rocking progressions and like having her bend her arms and like push the floor away. And her, it wasn't a push-up, it wasn't pushing. And all of a sudden nothing hurt. But if we would have asked her to do a push-up, then it would hurt. And actually, perfect example would be today, using the FMS, Todd tested her trunk stability push-up, which is just basically a push-up, and we're looking to make sure that there was no pain with her.
Yeah.
And in the past, she would always tell you that she has pain before she does the test. Well, today, Todd set her up, like without really talking to her about what they were going to do, and got her to do the test. And then afterwards, she was like, have I done this before? And Todd was like, well, that's the great news is that you just did it. And he asked her right away. He was like, was that like uncomfortable? I think she was like, no, not at all. And he was like, well, that's the great news is that you have done this before. And you said that you had discomfort before, so we rated you a 0. And she was like, well, actually, if I think about it, I actually do. I think that I had some discomfort in my shoulder just now. And it was like, I just walked over and high-fived her. I was like, it didn't hurt. Good job. Like,
so the interesting
not
thing,
trying to take away and say that she didn't have pain, but it was like she overthought it, and then she's like, well, maybe that was uncomfortable.
And she said that. She said, well, now that I think about it, now it hurts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And, there'll be times, I can give you a couple examples, with this same client where she's come in and she's like, she's already, I'll let Chris get his dogs. She's already talked herself into pain before it's happened. And other instances like today, like, there are certain things that we do that the only way that she would feel the pain that she had is if she was severely injured. So she's talking about things in her knee when we do certain exercises, and the way that she feels the pain, the stress that we're giving her would in no way cause pain there. Mm-hmm. So we kind of play little games with her, and like I kind of use motivational interviewing techniques and let her kind of dictate things and put her in control, and it seems to work out pretty well. But she gets, she kind of loses her shit and she gets super emotional. Like she started crying today.
Yeah.
Because she said, like, the last time I started to feel this pain, I was doing Zumba, and I was a Zumba instructor, and I had this, and I couldn't go up the stairs, and my husband had to do everything and everything. I was like, okay, well, that's cool, man. Like, and kind of put her in a different direction. And, you can tell it's quite obvious that the issues are far beyond anything that we can handle.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced that someone like you could help her. Mm-hmm. But I have, like, bridging that conversation with her. I don't know that I'm the one that can do it, because she legitimately, this is the first time this has ever happened to me in my life, because I tried very hard to be client-centered and try to understand everyone and how I interact with them and understand what people need from me. And I kind of make sure that in that way I'm a chameleon with how I interact. And one day I was sitting at the desk at our gym, and she actually I was like doing work or something. I looked up and she's just fucking sitting right there in my face, like looking at me, and she's all teary-eyed. And she's like, I just want to let you know that you intimidate me. And I was like, and I was like, okay. I was like, I didn't expect that. I'm sorry to hear that. I would have never guessed that from any of our interactions. And she went on, she's like, yeah, I just feel like you're always going to tell me that I'm being too soft, or that I should just push through it. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't feel like I've ever given you that behavior. I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way, blah, blah, blah. And
you never did that.
No. And it was just, so that's why it's like, there's all this evidence of us being like, hey, you should go fucking talk to somebody. I can't say.
Here's where that conversation where she says, like, I feel like you tell me that I'm soft, is because we'll reframe her concerns. I think this is going to hurt. Well, did you try it? No. Well, okay, we understand you think that it's going to hurt, and I'll make a deal with you. If you try it and it hurts, we won't do it. And then it from there, she'll try it. She's like, well, that didn't hurt. But it's almost like she's embarrassed, or like her.
Yes, she's embarrassed.
The fact that such a simple statement back to her made her go and do it. And then she's like, oh, yeah, that didn't hurt. And then, well, that's intimidating now. She doesn't want to tell Todd that I don't think I can do this today. So she'll just kind of shut down, and not to throw like a whole nother layer on this thing. But her big thing is that she wants to have another kid, and they are going crazy with her hormones, trying to do like IVF, having injections. And she literally, like today, I don't know if Todd knew this, like she came to me as I was leaving, and she was like, just so you know, I might need to freeze my membership for a while. I'm about to go into like the crazy, like where I'm going to be apologizing to you, the crazy hormonal time, and I won't be allowed to work out for 3 weeks. And this is where like I literally will just start crying for absolutely no reason. Mm-hmm. So all that, sorry. Good luck.
Yeah. She brought that up to me. But the main thing is like in the reality, I feel like she needs someone to help her manage all of this shit.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that she necessarily has the skills to box it all in.
No.
I feel like I'd be like, hey, Smita, maybe you should fucking talk to somebody, but I don't, you know what I mean?
Well, it's not boxed in, it spills out. It's spilling out all the time.
Exactly.
I'm saying like, you intimidate me because you probably want me to push through it and like suck it up, and you're probably judging me. That's not you. That's whatever's going on in her head.
Yeah.
And she's being exposed. So when you guys like say like, well, did it hurt? And then she's having this like, well, no, it didn't. There's all this stuff probably going on in her mind of like, oh shit, you know, they probably think this, they probably think X, Y, and Z of me. And that's because she's thinking X, Y, and Z of herself.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not that this is where you would go in your mind, but to me, this sounds like someone who has experienced trauma in the past. I don't know anything about her history, but this is someone who the emotions and the behaviors, it's sort of like spilling over into the gym. And so there's like a discrepancy between what you're doing in the here and now and what she's reporting and what her emotional or her affect level is. So that mismatch that you feel and that feeling that you're like, whoa, like what is all this when we're doing this? That is exactly, I think that you're right on about like, she definitely needs to talk to somebody. So, and also it sounds like she has some insight about this. If she's saying something like, you intimidate me, or some of the other things that you quoted her as saying, I think that she's self-aware or self-conscious. So, I don't know who she might have the most rapport with, but I think there's some way in which, do you guys do programs like every 4 weeks, or is there some kind of increment where you re-up?
12 sessions and she gets a new program. So she's semi-private, so whenever she finishes her program.
Okay, so I think that there's some way, it's kind of like when you think about the treatment plan or you think about what the workout is, this is part of it, that there is this other thing that's sort of getting in the way. And she might get emotional when you talk to her, and that's okay, because she is emotional, she is spilling over. So whoever is like going to be the least harmed by seeing her shed a tear when you talk to her, I would go ahead and just be transparent with her and say, Nita, you know, it's time for your new program. We've been working together for X amount of weeks or X amount of months, and these are the things I see going really well. But there are some things that happen that seem like they really get in the way and are hard. And I would list what some of those things are, like, you know, I know one thing that's really hard for you is you don't want to do things that push because they hurt. But we've done some things where you push and there's no pain until we talk about it, and then there's pain. And so that makes me wonder if it's not just physically what's going on, but if there's something actually psychologically going on as well. And I don't know, because I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a psychologist, but I've kind of been wondering that lately. And then there was this other time when you said this, and I don't know, but just in kind of thinking about your program and like how to progress you, or like where to go next, I think this is one thing that maybe if you talk to somebody or we checked it out a little bit, we might be able to kind of move you to the next level or get you closer to whatever her goal is. I don't know what it is. But I would find a way to come out and say it and provide examples.
Yeah.
Of
do
it.
you get all concerned that they look at you and pretty much go like, so you think I'm crazy?
That's stigma.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you were saying to her, you know, like every time we do, I don't know what movement, like your glute med shuts down or you can't get overhead extension, like I want you to go see a PT, they wouldn't say like, what do you think? I'm crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So that is part of the way the world is set up. That's way bigger than us. And the way that we change stigma is to provide the best recommendations and to act like the most ethically responsible that you can act, which is if she needed a referral to a PT, you would just come out and say it and not worry that she's going to feel judged.
Yeah.
If she needed to see a nutritionist, she'd probably come out and say it and not feel scared that you're going to offend her. So why, and I talk about this all day long, stigma, this is kind of my soapbox. So why should it be any different when we're talking about mental health? Just because you can't see red bumps or you can't see a fever or you can't take a blood test to prove it doesn't mean she's not sick. It doesn't mean that there's not pathology there. And because it's invisible, people want to pretend like, don't talk about it, don't get treatment for it. Only crazy people need that. When in fact, it sounds like you guys are both saying she could get a lot of help by addressing all this stuff that's spilling over into training and getting in the way.
Yeah.
And she may just need, I mean, if you think about who you guys are, you're not mental health professionals. You're not, you're everyday, like you're dudes at the gym. And if you say it in kind of a, I think you should go talk to someone, that's so powerful. Like that's coming from like not that you're a normal everyday person, you're special, but that's coming from someone who, if I say, I think you should go talk to someone, well, of fucking course I think that. I think everyone should talk to someone. I'm very biased, but you're not biased, You're a guy who is just giving like your heartfelt best recommendation because you care about her. And she says, what do you think, I'm crazy? No, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're great. But I think sometimes you anticipate pain and that causes pain. And I think some of the ways that you feel and some of these stuff that comes up around your thinking, your feelings at the gym is getting in the way of your training. And I just want you to have the best training you could possibly have. And what could it hurt to go talk to somebody? It costs like a copay.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I have a lot of practice at saying that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
maybe you could, I don't know, kind of brainstorm a couple sentences you might say to her or ways you might say it to her. But
so
I think what you're feeling is the stigma around what it's like to suggest to somebody that they talk to somebody.
So not to say that we would select that professional for them, but let's say that if they were to say, well, can you help me find someone?
Yeah.
How would you go about selecting?
Yeah.
Because like, I think, and I could be, this is the whole thing. You're not special. No, I think that you are special. I think that like you have this understanding of our world that I don't know that a lot of people do. How do you recommend going about finding the appropriate person?
This is such a tricky question. I wish that, there was a more obvious way to know who the therapist would be out there, who would be kind of tuned into, it's really like mind-body connection, and not that they have to have the word sports psychologist underneath their title.
But would that kind of be if it's a exercise, physical activity related thought process? Is that
sometimes yes and sometimes no? And I'm sorry to cut you off, but here's for an example. When I earned my doctorate, it was in sports psychology, and I was in school with a bunch of, I'll call them kids, who were getting their master's degree in sports psychology. They wanted nothing to do with being in a clinical setting. They wanted nothing to do with mental illness. Like, they wanted to help people improve their golf stroke. They wanted to help you make your free throws. They wanted to work with teams. So those people, they're probably out there doing sports psych work. But see, for like this client or other clients, I don't think it'd be the best referral, because this woman, I think, has some pathology going on, some emotional stuff going on. So then there's like this other part of the spectrum that is therapists who don't know anything about mind-body connection or don't know anything about training or fitness. So I do think it's a hard question, because it's like finding a needle in a haystack. But if you guys could find like 2 or 3, then you'd have a referral source. Yeah. You'd have some go-tos. So just off the top of my head, one thing I would recommend you do is go to psychologytoday.com. And psychologytoday.com is a national website, and therapists can put their bio up. And so I have one, for example, it's just a page, and you can search by zip code. You can search by insurance company. You can search by like gender or specialty. And they don't have sport and exercise as a specialty. I wish they did. They don't. But what you can do is go on and search, put in your zip code close to the gym or wherever you are, and see who's nearby, because you have to write your own bio. So if you read a paragraph and somebody's talking about being solution focused or being problem focused or is talking about helping people with their goals, or if they say something about life coaching, I would say those kinds of people might be someone to consider. I think there's good therapists out there and there's bad therapists out there.
Yeah.
And if you could find 2 or 3 good ones, you probably would be all set. Because it's not like you're referring half your clients for long-term therapy. So I know that's not an awesome answer, but
No,
that's one way
at least a place to go and look. Because I know, like,
Yeah.
what do you Google it? You know, like when we look in the past, like Google, and it's like, all right, how do I select one of these people off of their website or whatever? So
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mike Connolly raised his hand. No one else knows how to do that yet.
Mike.
Hey, Lisa. Good to see you again. Sorry I was late. I've been a crazy week here, and I didn't see the fact that we started at 7:30.
It's okay.
So my bad. But I wanted to just something that kind of resonated with me, and getting around the stigma of bringing that up to somebody.
Yeah.
Is and I don't know. I talk about it freely. I've been through therapy before, so I usually approach somebody with my story to kind of say, hey, like, we all have shit that we're dealing with. And I used to think of it this way. And then I went through a couple bad experiences before I found something that worked for me. Mm-hmm. And that usually is a pretty easy way to break down the wall.
Yeah. Good for
and
you.
Obviously not everyone has that advantage. I feel like it's a unique advantage, but if you haven't gone through it, or if you have gone through it, I would say that talking with people about it makes it a pretty easy sell, right? They kind of just let their guard down right away, and so I just wanted to share that. And
I think that's an excellent example, and it does take down the wall, right? Because then the other person doesn't have to pretend like they don't need it, or it doesn't apply to them, or only crazy people do it, or whatever, because they're seeing like a fabulous high functioning person talk about going through it.
I don't know how fabulous and high functioning, but
you are.
But I got through it, and it wasn't bad. Going through it, you feel like all these things, and there's all these preconceptions that people, like, oh, my life is going to change forever. But it's just like anything else. It's like going through PT. Mm-hmm. You just kind of fix something and keep going.
Yep.
So
I had a colleague say to me once that when he talks to, I work in a college setting, he said, when I talk to college students, I say, psychotherapy is a conversation between 2 people about one of them. That's all it is. It's somebody's undivided attention talking about something in your life. There's no magic. You're not being psychoanalyzed. You're not going to be changed forever. It's just a conversation.
That's a really good way to put it. I think that would help people break down their walls. Mm-hmm. So let's see here. We got Dan. You wanted to talk, man, about the processes and systems. Do you want to ask your question real quick, man? Or you don't have to. It's fine. Shy. You still there, Dan?
First,
there he is.
I need to unmute myself. That's a key piece of the puzzle. All right. Thanks, guys, for letting me ask this 2 weeks in a row. This is a bonus round. So, Lisa, I appreciate anything you're able to add to the question.
Okay.
It's just looking for systems, processes, or tools that you may have used and found success with that address lifestyle and mindset. And that could be with individuals, or it could be in a group, or both.
Can you say more?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, at Rebel, I'm working with the Rebel team right now. It's great stuff, just getting in the mix there. And we're trying to put together ways to show that lifestyle and mindset are really important parts of training.
Yes.
So checking in with people in a non-intrusive way that's consistent and offers some tracking, offers kind of an inroad if you see something out of balance, or if one of the members reports something that's affecting their training, you want to have systems or tools in place to allow, an effective way to approach that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you may have used?
This is a broad question. So I'm trying to think about, so these are folks who are enrolled in some kind of program or just are coming to Rebel to train.
Mm-hmm.
And you're wanting to make it more holistic.
Yeah, I could provide maybe a little more of an example. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, it would.
Sweet. So let's say somebody comes in, and in an individual session, it's easier, right? Because you could then maybe have a little more one-on-one drill down in any specific thing. Oh, I slept like crap. Oh, okay. Tell me what happened. Like something's going on. Oh, I just had, a really bad night's sleep because I was out late drinking. Like, oh, that's an easy one. Right. So that just goes away. But something that's more patterned where it's like, oh, I was in an argument, and I'm all stressed out. And you're like, oh, okay. So that sounds a little bit more serious. In an individual session, you could probably over time continue to see how serious that is in just conversation. But let's say a group, somebody comes in, says they didn't sleep well. You notice that it's affecting their training. They come in again, said that they're eating like crap and it's affecting their training. Mm-hmm. Comes in again and they're really not performing well. Mm-hmm. And they say they have like job stress and it's affecting the training. Mm-hmm. So kind of just wondering ways to track that, ways to approach that.
And also you're describing things that come up on your radar that may or may not necessarily be on the client's radar. They're just haphazardly reporting this to you as they're coming in. So what is a process or what is a structure to get that on their grid and then to help them care about that and to sort of bring that into whatever their program is. So to me, this has to do with goals and goal setting. So they have training goals, they have whatever they're doing in the gym, but then there's also these sort of global goals. And I would call it a holistic approach because you're talking about their wellness, their sleep hygiene, nutrition, relationships, all that sort of thing. So have you ever seen the pie chart that's your financial health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your, all that. So you're sort of talking about as we're training and we're working with these people, they're talking about these other pieces of the pie, of their pie chart that is of course affecting their training. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know what the culture is like at Rebel. I mean, I kind of do because I've been there, but in terms of bringing that up with the clients, is there some kind of, I'm sure you do an initial assessment and you ask them what their goals are when they start, right? And then how often are you re-upping or changing their programming?
So I can speak to what I know, and then Mike or any of the other Rebel team could chime in as well, of course. But for example, the monthly program is just renewing. So the team has decided to put a little bit of a mini checklist at the top of the program sheets that members use, which is great. Simple, straightforward, awesome. Yep. So that happens on a monthly basis in the group format.
Good. Okay, so they're having a monthly check-in and they're doing a self-report. I think there's a way to build in on that form something having to do with lifestyle or something having to do with mindset. And the way I would approach it is maybe about goals. And I'm wondering, do they have a check-in with a trainer? Does somebody review this sheet with them or talk about their program with them? Or is it just something they fill out and then it gets processed?
So it's as Dan said, we haven't instituted that yet. I think what we will do is kind of divvy up our clientele and have our coaches assigned to a certain number of students.
Yeah.
And then those coaches will be in charge of kind of checking in on the seats, going through their check-ins, and just seeing if there's anything that stands out that we need to talk about.
Okay.
Other than that, as far as what we have been doing to this point, if we see somebody that's kind of struggling or something, and if initial tries at verbal communication don't go very well, sometimes we'll send them like a handwritten card, like, hey, you know, just try and bring it up that way to kind of soften it a little bit. That's about what we've been doing so far.
Okay. Sometimes all it will take is a little bit of like priming or cueing. There's a book called Nudge. I think it's probably on this bookcase behind me over here, NUDGE. And it's about like giving little tiny cues can actually prime somebody to start thinking more about their behavior. So let's say, for example, on this sheet where they maybe check off some things, there might be something like, is there one part of your lifestyle that you want to work on this month? Or maybe you even say to them like, hey, Bob, I've noticed like the last 5 times you've come in, 3 of those times you said you're really tired. You only slept 3 hours. I'm wondering if maybe like this month you want your lifestyle goal to be about sleeping better. And it just needs like one little line or one little, what do you want to work on? And maybe they write like, try to sleep for 7 hours or something like that, so that they're actually thinking about it, and maybe they're even writing something down. And not that you have to be harping on it every single session, but sometimes just cueing or priming it a little tiny bit will get them thinking about that. Or if you say, for example, you had a mindset goal. So what's one part of like your mental game, or what's one mental skill you want to work on while you're here training? And they might need a little help with that. So if there's or maybe there's a client who's like, I really want to, the female client being able to do a pull-up, like I want to be able to do it without like psyching myself out, and like, or I want to be able to lift X amount of weight without getting nervous about it, or I want to stop talking myself down when I don't get to the number of reps I want, or just writing down maybe one little sentence or one little phrase about what they might work on could probably cue them. And then you've got it in writing too. So if you see it and 2 weeks later you're working with them, you could say, I noticed you're kind of talking yourself down a little bit, and your mindset goal is to kind of stay positive this month, or something little like that. I don't think you need to create a whole big curriculum. You could probably just throw a line or two on this little sheet you're looking to implement and get a little structure out of that. What do you think?
I love it. That sounds really great.
Okay.
Simple, but not easy, as the phrase goes, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then it creates a doorway for you to bring it up again. Like if they write something down and you notice it, then you get a chance to say it again and bring it up again in the session. It doesn't just like go away.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Or you're not thinking about it like to yourself, or talk, like right now you're thinking about somebody not sleeping or not taking care of themselves and their lifestyle, but not maybe bringing that up with them in the session because it doesn't feel like there's a place for that. So if you've got a little line on a sheet of paper, you have a place for that. You have an entry point.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
It's really great. Thanks, Lisa. So
yeah.
do we have time for one more question? Can we do one more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So if I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask, I'm going to let Alyssa, I see that you're on. Do you want to ask your question? You got to unmute yourself. There you go. That doesn't sound good.
Sounds like a fax machine.
Yeah. It's like a dial-up. It's 1995. Hold on, Alyssa. You go ahead and mute yourself again. I'm gonna ask your question for you because there's something messed up with your connection. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. I'll just run through it for you real quick, but you'll get the benefit of being on for it. So, so Alyssa has a question about folks that want to walk out of the gym feeling like they got their ass kicked every time. And so she's curious about how to help change the mindset of a client to let them know that it's not okay to get beat up during every workout and walk out feeling like you got your ass kicked, because she has a client that feels like if she's not being pushed to exhaustion, she isn't getting a good workout.
Okay. So I think there's 2 parts of the answer. The one part is about education. So probably some way in which you can talk to her or educate her about how that's actually not beneficial every single time you work out. And I'm trying to think of an example. You know, when I first met my husband, he started to give me suggestions and let me know that he thought I was wasting some of my time at the gym. And I was like, who the hell does this guy think he is, telling me how to train? And it wasn't necessarily helpful for him to tell me what I should be doing. So he gave me a book that was called The New Rules of Lifting for Women. And in that book, it really kind of broke down some of the physiology and just kind of the science behind strength training, and getting that education from a different source helped me to get on board and helped me to change my behavior. Even though everything he's saying was absolutely accurate, there was something about getting the education and learning it in a scientific way that helped me. So I think part of it is education. The other part of it, I think, is understanding what the client is getting out of getting her ass kicked. So is that for some clients, like that's like penance for them for eating pizza the night before, or they somehow feel that that's counteracting whatever bad behavior they may have been engaging in. I recently did a workshop in London with a group of trainers who worked with clients who were all in the financial district and who were like very highly successful and high achieving, all type A people who were in charge all the time and were bosses all the time. And so they would come to the gym and say, like, I'm not in charge now. I want you to be the boss of me and kick my ass. So there's a psychology behind that. So without knowing the psychology behind your client, I think part of it is providing education. And the other part of it is understanding what she gets out of getting her ass handed to her. And then is there a different way for her to get that benefit, whatever the satisfaction is that she gets out of it. Okay. Sorry that I can't hear more from you now, but I hope that there's a way to apply that to her. Okay.
There were head nods. I think we're good.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Awesome. Good. Well, we've officially gone over time, but Lisa, that was awesome. That was really one of the best Q&As we've had, and you've given us a lot of valuable, actionable things. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. This was really exciting to be on and have conversations like this.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Everybody have a good night.
You too.
You too.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye.